Welcome back and good evening. Well, today I have a pretty good one. I'm going to call it a vintage reel unboxing. What I have today is an Ambassador Black Max 1600C. Now, these reels originally they were released in 1992, and they were made till probably about the year 2000. And what this was originally, it was a competitor to the then new Shimano Calcutta B. Where Shimano, they had a full one-piece frame with a low reel foot, and as you can see, this is what we have here. This was fully intended to compete with that. It came in a size from 1600 up to 6600. Now the 6600s were meant for bigger fish and whatnot, but the 1600 and 3600 sizes, they have a disengaging level line. So level line's not going to move on the cast, it's going to stay put, which is something that's generally conducive to better casting distance. And what's cool is back in the day, Abu used to get a vial of oil, a little wrench, and this one even came with a pair of blue ultralight brake blocks. I didn't even really notice that at first. These are the smallest ones that you could get. The blue were the smallest. Then you had the black, which are the mid-weight, and then the white blocks, which are the heavyweight ones. But this one I'm going to do a little resto-mod kind of thing to it. One of my big complaints about these is the cheap handle that's on it. The knobs kind of wear out quick. They get really gummy, don't rotate very well. Things are just kind of not up to modern standards. So what I'm going to do with this one, I'm going to strip it down, take it all apart, do a few little upgrades to it. Going to do the handle, the star wheel, the spool cap. I'll show you what I have on that end. This is a Pineda Craft 70mm handle. These are really popular in Japan with people that do classic Ambassadors. It does have 4 bearings in it, 2 per knob. It's made from duralumin, so it's pretty lightweight. I also have a Vail Star Wheel, which is duralumin. This one you can see has had some use. I had it on another reel previously that I changed up a little bit. And for a nice little touch, this is a titanium nitride line guide that came on the Pro Max, which was essentially the same reel, just had a few more bearings and a different color scheme. But I'm going to take this apart, clean it up, get it all back together. I do have some new spool bearings for it. I'm sure the ones in there are fine, but these are already cleaned out, ready to go. I did lubricate them with TSI 301, which is a spray lubricant, and gave them a spin to distribute it, and blew out the excess with compressed air, so they spin pretty well. And I also had my own blue brake blocks that I'm going to put in there. These reels, what's really interesting about them is the spool is very lightweight. So for something that came out in 1992, the spool only weighs a little more than 10 grams, which is, even by today's standards, is a pretty light spool. This will pair up well probably with like a medium light, even a light powered rod, and on the right rod it'll cast down to an 1/8, just as it is right now. There may be, I have owned these in the past, but I think probably put some magnets in there at some point. But here's my 1.5mm. Pull the E-clip, and we're going to put this one off to the side. This handle, I'm not sure exactly what I'm going to do with it. It has all the old grease in there. And what I do is I just have a couple of parts trays. These are dental tool trays. You can get them on Amazon. You can get like a 5-pack of them for 15 bucks or so. And I'm just gonna put all the dirty stuff in there for now and work along and get it all cleaned up and put it back together, and we'll see what the finished product looks like. This old grease is pretty stiff. I mean, this reel right here, this particular one, I don't know if you can see that, but the foot stamping is 02 0010/32. So what that means in the way Abu stamps their feet, at that time this was designed in 1992, but the 10 denotes that it was made in 2000, and the 32 was made the 32nd week of the year 2000. And these reels, these were the predecessors to the Morum, which they made from 99, maybe even a little earlier than that, 98, 99, and they made them up until 2014 with the Morum ZX, which is itself a fantastic reel. It was made from bar stock aluminum. It was very lightweight. The Morums, I think they weigh right under 7 ounces. For that time, it was a pretty light reel. There wasn't really I don't know why they didn't catch on. They probably really couldn't compete with Shimano and Daiwa at the time. Here I'm just going to pull out the axle. This isn't a typical spool shaft, so this remains stationary and the spool spins right on it. So what I'm going to do real quick is I'm just going to pull the stuff out of this one, the bearings and all that, and we're going to go ahead and got to pull this little bearing retainer off here. I like to use a little curved awl for that. It makes it a little easier. You can tell this one's never been apart because the ones that you can get on eBay, they're used. They usually pop out fairly easy. And this one does have the middleweight brake blocks. I'm going to change them out to the blue ones. The black ones are actually a pretty good all-around brake block, but being that I'm going to use this on probably a medium light, I'm definitely going to go with the blue ones. I can pull those off. They just slide right off of there. And now now this little ring that's right here, I just like to get a screwdriver under it. And that whole thing comes off. And we have the bearing retainer. It's going to hold all that in. You can just take a screwdriver and stick it in there. Out comes one bearing. Out comes the next one, and then this they call the spring washer. It's meant for when you add spool tension to it so it can hold the bearing straight. So what we can do is, let's see how much the spool weighs. I don't think it's going to be a whole lot. If I remember correctly, it's right around 10 grams. So let me go ahead and set this up for grams. There we go, and set it right there. Yeah, 10.28 grams, which is, for 1992, we're talking 33 years ago, that was virtually nothing at the time. And these are, like I said, these are really popular for throwing weightless soft plastics. Well, they were back then, and we're going to find out what's very interesting about these is the drag stack in it is almost identical to the larger 4,000 to 6,000 size ambassadors. These are what they call bridge screws. They hold the brake plate to the side plate. This thing's just in beautiful condition, and interestingly enough, I have a story on how I acquired this. This exact reel, I saw it on Facebook Marketplace. It was out of state. I noticed that the seller, he said specifically, no shipping. So a lot of the times when people say that they're not going to ship, you can usually, hey, I'll cover shipping and give you a few bucks for your trouble. So I sent him a message. I said, you know what, I'll give you another 20 bucks, pay for shipping. Thanks for your troubles, no problem. Nope, I don't want to ship. So a couple weeks goes by. I ask him again, hey, are you interested in shipping that? And he says, no, I don't want to do that. Well, a few days later, I get an eBay alert, and it was this reel. So I sent him a message on Facebook again, and he says, well, I saw that they were going for $300 on eBay, so I'm going to put it on there. I said, all right. I told him, I said, my offer still stands. Nope, he didn't want to do it. And when the hammer dropped, I actually ended up getting it for what he was asking. Plus, he covered shipping too. I didn't have to pay for any of the shipping or none of that. So think about it, after the eBay fees, he made less off of selling through eBay than he would have if he took my initial offer on it. Wasn't trying to lowball him or anything. I was being fair, compensating him for his troubles, and nope, he wanted to roll the dice on eBay, but I still got it. And the drag stack, if actually I'm going to put some carbon drag washers in this, but when you look at them, they're the same dimensions as the 4000 to 6000 C3, C4 reels. And so when you get to ordering drag washers for them, that's the set that you order. Now there's going to be one drag washer that you're going to omit, and it's going to be the base one, because you have the idler gear for the level line. Because being that this is a disengaging level line, you're going to have, it's going to turn this little gear right here, so that's going to make the level line traverse back and forth. Just going to finish pulling this apart. As you can see, these are fairly simple inside. There's really not a whole lot to them. This is the position holder. There's the 2 leaf springs that hold the pinion yoke down. Pull out the pinion yoke, remove the gear. Boy, this old grease is really sticky, so this is going to move pretty good when I'm done with it. And something that Abu was famous for is over lubricating from the factory. And if you go to the store, like Bass Pro Shops or Cabela's or whatever that sells these, well, not these particular ones, but the C3, C4 models, you'll see that they're way over greased. They put a whole lot on the level line. If you were to actually purchase one and take it apart, you'd see that they grease everything, and it really slows them down. And now that we just have the bare brake plate, what I like to do is, some things I use an ultrasonic cleaner for, but when it comes to actual parts, I like to use mineral spirits and a toothbrush. So bear with me here while I do this. Go and scrub this stuff off. Now dry it with microfiber really quick, and just keep continuing cleaning all this, and we'll get it back together. Shouldn't take too long for this one, because it's a factory fresh reel. Hasn't had any use, so there's no real dirt or anything in there that needs to be removed, or so I'm just getting rid of all the old lubricants, get the old oil off, anything that I can. I mean, I'll get it all off, no problem, but still gotta do it. I just bumped the camera, that's not fun. I mean, working in a little tight space here, so things are gonna happen. So I got the brake plate and then idler gear. I'm gonna take that and scrub all the grease off. And this grease is pretty tough stuff. I mean, this is a firm toothbrush that I'm using, so it should come off. If it was this grease, I'm not sure what grade it is. It could be a NLGI 3, maybe even thicker, but gotta get it all off there, because sometimes if you mix lubricants together, they can react with one another and seize things up. I've seen it happen before. I've had it happen to myself. Mixing Shimano grease with other greases, generally a no-no. Some you can get away with, but if you use PTFE grease like I do, a lot of times it's going to give you a hard time. I just got to go through and get these teeth in here. Dry it off in the rag. Nice and clean now. I'll just work my way around the parts. Next up I have the drive shafts. Got a big booger of grease on there. It's got to come off. I would actually have it scrub on my workbench, but I do have a lot of other things up there I don't want to get mineral spirits on, so I'm just kind of off camera a little bit getting that done. Something I do have, I actually should have had it about a month ago, is I did buy a BFS spool for this, and there really isn't any well-known companies out there that make them, but I found a shop in Vietnam that does TNT craft, and I got talking with the owner. Guy's super knowledgeable, very passionate about his work, and unfortunately we had a postage stop from Vietnam to the United States, so my spool has been tied up in limbo for who knows how long. It should have been here later in June, but I haven't had anything yet. He touched base with me and said, hey, there's an issue going on. I said, well, it'll get here someday. I'm not really concerned about it. And this reel actually was going to be a collaboration between myself and Jimmy, aka Rar Fishing. I was going to build it out, send it over to New Jersey so he could shoot some footage of it, bass fishing, trout fishing, whatever he wanted to do with it, but it's going to have to wait until I get that other spool in. But as it is right now, I mean, I'm just going to use it and enjoy it. These reels were, in 1992, they were $120. So when you think about that, if you adjust for inflation, you're going to be looking at about a $300, $350 reel in 2025 money. Now the Pro Max, which I also have, Pro Max 1600, those retailed in 1992 for almost $200. So at that point you're getting up over $400 and adjusted for inflation. And those are fairly popular just as these are, but over the years the Black Max has maintained more popularity because it uses a bushing on the brake plate instead of a bearing. Now you might be wondering, why would a bushing be better? Well, the bearing's pressed into that brake plate, and when it fails, you either need to press the bearing out, which not everybody has, or you can get a Black Max brake plate. They're both interchangeable. They use they're all the same dimensions, and when you get to modifying these and looking at parts, you have to pay attention to the schematics on them, because they did do part changes over the duration of the production. Some brake plates don't fit some frames or side plates, so you really need to pay close attention to what you're ordering on that end. There's places that still stock parts for these. I actually found a place down in Florida called Platinum Reel Parts, and they sell, you can get the 6.3 gear set that you can swap into the older variants that came with 5.3 gears. This one already has 6.3 gears in it. This is how it came from the factory, but it's a popular upgrade for these with people that get a older one on eBay. And something I've noticed with these is that prices have been creeping up a little bit. When I used to have a whole fleet of these things probably about 7-8 years ago. Got really into them. I probably modified a bunch of them, fished them pretty thoroughly, and at the time I was finding decent shape used ones for $20 to $30. Now you're looking more about $50 to $60 for reels of that same condition. Now, not a mint condition reel, but something that's that doesn't look like it's all beat up. Just going through the pinion yoke here and getting any grease that's in it. Sometimes you get a lot that cakes up right here in the collar, where the pinion gear just sits in. It can get jammed up in there, and that'll just use a Q-tip for to get whatever else might be in it. Yep, you can see that Q-tip starting to get a little brown in it. Not sure what kind of grease they used back then, but in newer Abu reels they use either a green or a blue grease. It's not the pen blue grease. It's almost like a seafoam color, seafoam green, blue, what have you. I'm just going through and cleaning up the brake plate components now, and then after that I'm going to go and pull the level line off. And level line on this is actually fairly simple. There's this one actually has a couple of bushings on either side. I'm going to replace those with some bearings, smooth out the action of it a little bit, and the bearings in the Pro Max, I think people have had failures on them over the years, but I'm not too concerned about that because I keep quite a few bearings on hand, and I'll have replacements if they fail on me. Bearings that I'm using are 730 NMB, and they're an exact fit to where the bushings go on this reel. Something that I didn't check is what the anti-reverse looks like in there. Looks like it's got a little bit of grease in there. It's not too bad. What I'm going to do with that is anti-reverse, whenever I clean those, I have these foam swabs, because those don't leave any fibers behind. If you happen to get a fiber in there, it can mess you up a little bit, and that's something you don't want to happen, because it can throw that off kilter in there, one of those rollers. It could get stuck, anything can happen to it. So I'm just going to go through and clean that old grease off of there. Looks like we got quite a bit. Doesn't look like the rollers actually have too much on it, but I'm still gonna run some mineral spirits around in there, see if we get anything. Oh, not too bad. So that I can just kind of let hang out for a few and air dry, or I can walk it over to their compressor real quick. I think I'll just leave it be for now. Get that old grease off of there. Okay, that one's good. We're actually not going to use the spool cap anymore, so this one I'm just going to put it off to the side. I do have a replacement and all the other hardware that goes in it. These swabs and I can just put back in my compartment. So the position holder, this isn't something that's really lubricated. It's just, actually this one's got a bunch of oil on it. Didn't even see that at first, but just get that off of there. Quick dry. And the position holder, this little white piece, there's a spring in there. This is what kicks the clutch back. It's pretty nice because on a lot of newer reels it just uses a standard torsion spring, and those are easily lost. This is all one piece, and they're actually pretty resilient. I haven't ever seen one of these fail. This is about probably in the mid-90s is when they switched to this setup. Early in the 90s, when the full ultracast design came out, they they actually had a separate coil spring that kind of hooked to the the press arm on there, which is what snapped it back into place when you turn the handle. They really did over grease these things, and they still do, which is interesting because a lot of times I've opened up a new Shimano or a new Daiwa, barely had anything in it, which it's better to have not enough than too much. Too much is going to slow you down. It's not going to really do a whole ton for you. If you had new reels come in, it sounded geary because there wasn't enough oil on them, but you get the idea. I'm just finishing going through and cleaning up these washers here, or the drag discs I should say. This thing will function a lot better now than what it did before. I actually never fished this one. I got it and waited a couple months before I actually got around to doing something, because I was hoping I'd get that spool from TNT Craft, but it just never showed up. Sure, I'll get it someday, so no hurt feelings. Back 5 years ago, when you'd order stuff from AliExpress, a lot of times it would take, I've had things that took 2 or 3 months to actually show up from there. Nowadays, you get things in 2 weeks at the most. They really stepped up their game on that end. Just going through and scrubbing off these Belleville washers. These are the ones that actually apply drag pressure. If you can see that, these are curved, and they're curved because they oppose each other. So when you're turning the star wheel, it's going to apply pressure to the pressure plate right here. So interesting opening up a reel from a long time ago that's a new old stock. And these really fly under the radar right now. And I'm kind of expecting it at some point where more well-known companies like Avail will actually make parts for it. But I emailed them some years back about a spool, and they said, no, we don't have any intention of making it. And reason being is these weren't a Japanese market product, so of course they weren't going to sell anything that they didn't feel would sell well in their home market, which is understandable. Now, right here is this level line can be a little tricky. What I like to do is this just pops right off. If you take a look, you can see how it's keyed, so this little gear only fits one way, and you can actually see how it has a slot in it, so you know the orientation of it when you put it back on. So I'm just going to pull the worm gear. And this little worm gear screw, these are easily lost, so just be careful with this one. I should have actually done this before before I pulled that idler gear off. We gotta get the pawl out. Sometimes you can give it a little wiggle, and there it goes, it dropped. We can pull out the rest of the line carriage, and then there's the worm. Now you'll notice on the worm gear, pretty simple. There's your little black bushing right there. Take this, Pop off that E-clip. Remember to keep a finger on it, because these do like to go flying. Thankfully, Abu was pretty good about using the same size across their a whole reel. Usually it's going to be a M3, just like this. Just going to go ahead and scrub all the old lubrication off of here. I do love using mineral spirits just because it's so effective. In the past, I did use an ultrasonic cleaner, and I only pretty much use that for bearings now, where I can get something clean a lot faster with mineral spirits and a toothbrush than I could with an ultrasonic cleaner. Now this line guide, I'm not going to reuse this one, so this will just go in the parts bin, because I'm going to put that gold one on there, kind of give a little bit of an accent to set it off a little bit instead of using the silver. The silver doesn't really look too good on there in my opinion. If they made a black line guide with the gold wire on it, I'd have got that, but they don't. So the next best thing is just to pick one from Promax, which I find those at tackle shows frequently, get them really cheap. One of them that I have, I think I paid a whole maybe $20 for. Bought it solely to be a parts reel, just because parts for these are starting to get hard to find now. And I went ahead and disassembled that, put what I wanted in the parts bin, sold off the rest, and that's all I needed to do. Okay, so these bushings, I'm not going to really do anything with. Those are going to go in the parts bin. In that pawl that has pretty much no wear on it. So, like I said, this is a brand new one. It's not even oiled, so I'm not going to do anything with that. Little idler gear for it. I'm going to scrub that up real quick. Now these idler gears, being that they're nylon, you don't really need to lubricate them. Usually if you're going to lubricate them, it's going to be to reduce noise. But nylon on nylon doesn't really make that much noise, especially when it's in the gearbox like this is. So there's not going to be a whole lot there to worry about. Even on the synchronized reels, I don't even lubricate the idler gear that drives level lined. I like to run that dry because that's how you get the max speed. So here we go. This thing is all disassembled, cleaned. I'm going to go ahead and put it back together with the parts that I got going for it. Go ahead and I'm going to start with the spool just to get that all set to go. Put one bearing in, then this guy you have to watch how you put it in. You want this side to be up. If you have this side where it's flat, that's not correct. So this just pops right in there. If it doesn't go straight in, you can take something like that. Okay, so we got that one in there. And we're going to take this spring washer. We're going to drop that in. Sometimes it doesn't go in straight. I just like to take a pair of tweezers to reposition it. It's in there now. You take this other spool bearing, drop that in. And now we're going to take our brake washer, install our brake blocks. They just slide right on. If you look at that, there's a little, see how we have a little open end down there? That's how you, that's the way you want to put them. You can put them backwards, but all you're doing is not putting it into play, so to say. It's not going to have any effect or anything. Some people do is, if they only have access to the white brake blocks, they'll put one on engaged and one on disengaged, and it'll kind of have the same effect as running two black or two blue brake blocks. And then I can take this wire, the retainer clip, get that on there, and the spool's ready to go. So what I'm going to do real quick I'm just going to put it on the axle, give it a little spin test. Spins pretty good. You can see those brake blocks on there, they're flung out. That's how you know that they're working. Something I might want to do is put a little teeny tiny drop of oil on here where that plastic bushing is going to give it some little bit of friction in that area, and I can take and rub that on there into the metal. Let's see if that does anything to it. This is part of what I love about these, because you can do stuff to them and experiment along the way, see if it has any effect. Alright, it looks pretty good to me. Now we're going to continue building it back out. What I'm going to do is start with the level line. Now we have bearing. I'm just going to go ahead and put a bearing right on the end there. And we have to go ahead and put this E-clip back on. That's what retains it on there. Sorry for bumping the camera mount again. Take this and seat it right in. Alright, we got our E-clip. Take this and slide it right in. Now we'll get our other bearing. Slide that over the other side of the worm. And then this guy we can take and put in. Now this one's kind of a pain sometimes to get this back in, but that's alright. I just got to take and get the line guide. I'm going to line that up. There we go. Now, what we need to do is put this little bracket back in. So what this does is this actually positions the worm gear. You can just pop it in and rotate it. Go ahead and get my 3mm screwdriver. That's what I really love about these, is they're super easy to work on. There we have it, there's our line guide. Got that in there now. Go ahead and, something that I'm going to do on here is, on these disengaging level line models, any of them for that matter, regardless if it's Abu, Daiwa, Shimano, whoever, I like to use 90 weight gear oil. This is Super Lube ISO 22. It's an SAE 90 oil. What that does is it helps, gives a smoother feel to it, and it also protects better. It doesn't catch a lot of stuff like grease does, or any of that. Just take and drop the pawl in there. It'll drop, there it is. We gotta find out where it's gonna catch. Sometimes you gotta mess with it. There it goes. Felt it drop. I'll just put another quick drop of 90 weight on there. I'll get this pawl cap back on. Then we can take our little idler here and get that back on. Remember, we have that slot that's on there. We're going to line it up with the slot on here, and it just pushes right on. There we go. That one's all set. And then from here, we can take the side plate and get that back on. I like how this newer variant actually has a locator pin on there, so you know when you got it right. Now, the older variants of this don't have that. It actually has a screw where the locator pin is in there. And that can really mess with you, because especially if you can't see very well, or if the lights are dim or any of that. But the way I like to get this in, because the screwdriver is magnetized, but this isn't correct, I just like to take a pair of tweezers, get the screw in the hole, and then there we go. Now it's time to build out the brake plate. So the frame, I'm just going to go and stick it over in there. Now, something I like to use is, I don't like to use a thicker grease like some others do. I use the NLGI 1 grade, which is a little bit thinner, but being that I fish in the cold at times, I like to use something that's going to work better in that cold. Especially if you find yourself on a cold steelhead stream or something, or that NLGI 1 is really going to be and stay much smoother than NLGI 2. I even use the NLGI 1 on the drag because it has a less tendency to stick, or it actually has a much smoother startup in that kind of scenario. Even in the summertime, it's going to have a smoother startup, but all right, let's get to greasing her up and getting it back together. Get a little NLGI 1. This is actually use Super Lube. It's a really good grease. If you can get the more common grades like NLGI 2 and the higher viscosity oils from the hardware store local. But if you go to their website, they have a plethora of things you can get. I also like to use the NLGI 1 on the drive shaft post. Some people like to use rocket fuel liquid grease or that, but I found this stuff right here. It's pretty smooth. You can even, there's even some reels I would use a 90 weight gear oil on it. And that stuff's thick enough to where it's not going to run out or any of that. Grease up these pins for the pinion yoke. Get this side here. Now, what I can do is actually install these components. So this is the, I want to say if they call it the press arm, the slide arm, I can't remember exactly, but what I'm going to do, I'm going to grease up the brake plate a little bit so that stuff can, now what you do is that's going to travel in this area here, and you don't really need a whole lot of grease. I'll even put a tiny bit in that plastic bushing right there because that's where the pinion gear is going to rotate. I just like to get some on there. This grease, it's a little goes a long way. It's a PTFE grease. It actually stays put for quite a long time. It's fully synthetic, so it's not going to turn black on you or cause you any kind of discoloration. The oil doesn't separate from the soaps very easily. It's all around pretty good stuff. And what else I'll do is I'll grease this little post right here. That's where this is going to go. And you put this on, you gotta start it off. Actually, I forgot to grease right there because that's where that's going to sit. Now this one, it just drops on. You want to get it all the way, and then this is going to go behind there. And then we can take this, and there we have it. So the next step, we're going to take the pinion yoke. Now what I don't do is I don't grease the pinion gear right here. I just grease the drive gear. That's going to all spread around. It'll be good. You don't have to worry about any of that. Just grease the drive gear. It'll distribute it onto the pinion as you're cranking the reel. Give it a few spins to get the grease distributed, and then we also have to grease top there and there because that's where the pinion yoke's going to go. And this just drops right in. There we go. And we're going to grease the top of that too because that's where the position holder is going to make contact. That we're not going to put in yet, but where we're going to start is here we have the drive shaft. And we're going to take the drive shaft. I'm actually going to put a little bit of grease right there just to smooth the kickback on it. And we just take this and drop it right in. And then what we're going to do next is we're going to take the drive gear, to smooth it out. They don't even do this at the factory. Is I like to put a little bit of grease around the collar because when a fish is pulling drag, this is going to be spinning. So you don't want that to put premature wear on the drive shaft. Then we have to take this. I just like to put a little bit of grease on here so it sticks to the gear. And then we're just going to go and set it on there so it lines up with the holes. There we go. Now we can grease up the teeth. You don't need a whole lot. I just like to do a little rough brush of grease on there because it's all going to spin and be distributed. You don't even need to go the whole way. I like to do like a little bit here and a little bit there because it's going to be fine when it's all back together and you turn the handle a few times. It's going to distribute that. And this we can just drop it right down into the pinion gear. Now this is where we start the drag washers. So these, I'm going to use that same grease on. I'll just put a little bit on my finger, rub it in the other side. Because I really prefer grease drag because the fish I'm catching, I like to have a smooth start up. If you're fishing like slop, bass fishing or something, frogging, any of that kind of thing, that's where you're gonna really like a dry drag because it's going to have more bite to it. But something like this that I would use steelhead fishing over by me on Detroit River, place where fish have room to run, especially the fish that are out there. Sometimes you get a surprise muskie. Some guys, even the guys out there jigging walleye, they're getting sturgeon every now and then, and they're fighting these things for a half hour to an hour on a 8-pound line, get them boat side. Just get a little bit there on the washer, drop that one back in, and then we want to put a little bit of grease on the pressure plate. So what I'm going to do is put a little bit there, a little bit there, because that bearing sleeve that goes on there for the anti-reverse, that's going to make contact with that, so you want to have a little bit of grease on it. Now we're going to take the bearing sleeve, set that in, and the last part is going to be the position holder. Just line up the two holes. You'll see it's going to go on the gold post here, and it's going to just drop right in, and that's all done. Now you put the side plate back on. We have the whole gearbox all reassembled. And this, you're going to just drop it down. You'll see those two screw holes come up. And we can go ahead and put those in. Turn it that way a little bit so you can see better. Get those bridge screws in there. Now, here's that spool cap. I'm actually going to put a little drop of 90 weight in there, just so it holds the shims better. Now, being that this reel uses an axle, it doesn't rotate. That spool just rides right on it. But I still like to put, I'll use a little bit of ISO 22 on there, because you don't really need a thick oil on that part. And this is the axle clip, so that's what's going to snap into it when you put the axle in. There we have that, and we can go ahead and, that looks like it's got a little oil. Something with these ambassadors, you have this O-ring right here. You always want to put a little bit of oil on it, because if you don't, it can dry rot on you, and those can be hard to find. So anytime you're servicing one of these, don't forget to put a little bit of oil on that O-ring. Plus it makes it a lot easier to turn the spool tension cap. Next we got the Belleville washers, spring washers as they're also called. Just going to brush a little bit of grease on those. And this one we can set down. And you always want these things opposing each other, so if you see it curved like that, the other side's got to curve the opposite way. If they're both going the same way, then your drag's may bottom out on you, and you're not going to get as much force as you think you can get. Alright, so we got that, and go ahead and put the star wheel on it. I'm actually going to grease that drive shaft real quick. Just a little bit, it doesn't need much, just enough so the star moves nice and free on it. You can take that. Sometimes it's going to catch when you get to the bottom, but you can always grab a hold of the drive shaft and turn it. Then we have to put on the spring washer that goes before the handle. Get the handle on there. And now put this little E-clip back in. Sometimes you can push these out with your finger. they've been used a bunch. Yep, got that one. And then I actually bought these chrome black. I mean, Abu says they're chrome. I don't know how true that is, but it looks a lot better than that cheap plastic handle nut cover. Those, I don't know why they ever use those. Maybe it was just like a cost-cutting measure, but I don't really care for them. And usually if you see them, they really take away from the looks of these reels instead of just using a regular handle nut with a plate on it. Tighten that down. I can put on the handle nut retainer plate. I actually need to back that off a little bit just so I can line up this retainer. Take my 4mm flathead. Got that. And then last but not least is the axle. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to put a little bit of oil on there because that pinion gear is going to rotate on that. And if you grease it, it can cause it to hang at times. So I'm just going to put a little bit of oil. Actually, I'm going to put it on one of these foam swabs because you don't want to overdo it. Just get a little bit on there. Then go ahead and put a little oil on there so that thing slides nice. We take this and then with the push down, hear it pop into place. We'll go ahead and get the spool in. Put it all back together. Just tighten these side plate thumb screws and let's feels really good. Wow, that's like a significant difference on there for how that feels. It's not something you're going to flick the handle and it's going to be a fidget spinner forever and ever and ever, but that spool's really screaming along. What I'll probably end up doing with this is throwing some maybe 10 or 12 pound big game on it for now, and I'll just use that, fill the spool about halfway with that, and I'll top it off maybe with some number 1.2 YGKX braid. Just I'll put it on my Major Craft Days 6'2" medium light, or actually it's a 6'5" 3/16 to 1/2. It'll actually be a good color match for it too. Normally I don't care about that stuff, but for a reel like this that I'm a big fan of, I think it deserves to be on something like that. And one of these days coming up here, I'm going to take it out on the Detroit River, maybe one of the piers or boardwalks or whatever we have around here, and see what I can get with it. But here we have it, new old stock, Abu Black Max 1600C, full overhaul on it, modernized the looks a little bit, and thanks for watching.